In the second sentence, the example is an inferential consciousness generated from the statement. So the statement, the subject on a smoky pass. So there's a mountain pass. Of course, we're in Tibet. And there's some smoke hanging around on the pass. I always think, well, it blew there from somewhere else. And of course, some other people think, well, it's chemical smoke. There's many kinds of smoke. But anyway, there's fire up there that's producing the smoke. One infers, okay, there exists the capacity for fire. So this is what you're inferring. I don't know why you're bothering to infer this. There exists the capacity for fire to produce changes in fuel. Oh, I just sort of got it. So you want to I'm thinking like somebody from Rhode Island, and I want to make a clam bake up on the smoky pass of Tibet. As if for some reason I'd have a lot of clams and, corn on the cob and things, the stuff you have with a clam bake. And so you need some fire, and, you got some fuel. You got a couple people with fuel on their back, right? And so you want some place to burn that fuel, because for a clam bake, a real wound socket clam bake, you're going to have to boil it for, for quite some time. So you want fire and the capacity to produce changes in fuel. You want to, you can't just have wood. I'm doing a play on wound socket and wood. Why? Because there's some smoke up there, and we're going to have to walk a ways up there. Oh my gosh. One infers fire in its attribute, the capacity to produce changes in this wood that these guys have been carrying, these people have been carrying around on their backs, wanting to bring about a wound socket boiled dinner, which actually comes in a big, huge can. You don't go in a store. I don't know why they boil it in a can. What else would you boil it in? One infers fire is okay, but also a further ascertainment can something further can be induced, namely that this blazing fire undoubtedly, I was trying to get another word for undoubtedly. I didn't want to introduce doubt in this just because that's a technical word in our lingo.
Unquestionably.
Yeah, question. Yeah, that would be good because we don't question. Yeah, okay. Yeah, unquestionably. Because you're good because you kept the negative. Unquestionably transforms fuel to ash. Which has some bearing on the matter because I don't know. We'll have to clean up the place afterwards. I could tell you a story about cleaning up ash. It's an actual story of I cleaned it up with a bulldozer, and actually did a good job, but a big wind came up. This was in Connecticut, and we started a forest fire that night. My brother and I were cutting down trees, not for the fun of it. We were working for somebody. His point is that similarly, when a properly prepared party, party means somebody else, that person is ready to understand. Properly prepared means the person's ready to understand something, has gotten the background. And you being the person who's stating this, you might be the person who helped this party, two parties to the debate, the other party. You may have helped the other party get the background to make that party ready, or maybe they got it somewhere else, reading or whatever. So when that party is faced with the statement, faced with it means you presented it, or in meditation you presented it to yourself. The subject, a sprout, we've been using my body or your body, does not inherently exist because of being independent arising. The person not only infers that a sprout does not inherently exist, that their body does not inherently exist, but also is capable, the person, but also that person is capable of inferring another attribute without using another reason. In other words, they've got only one reason, and the reason, the force of the reason is such that through that original reflection on that reason, that can trigger. What was our word? That can stimulate, that can spark. What was the word?
Spark.
Spark? Capable of inferring another attribute of the absence of inherent existence, which the person does not ascertain right then, but later, as long as the functioning of that reasoning, you see that reasoning has functioning over time. As long as the functioning of that reasoning has not deteriorated. That a sprout, it switches. The writer here, that's Hopkins a few years ago, just a few, that a sprout is produced from a seed, or worded another way, that my body's emptiness of self-power unquestionably has the attribute of reliance on another. You see? This vocabulary that we picked up earlier, You see, self-power, emptiness of self-power, means reliance on another, because you've qualified what emptiness means as emptiness of self-power, and you've so imbued your understanding of emptiness that this can spark understanding that this emptiness has the attribute of reliant, that your body has not emptiness, your body has the attribute of reliance on another. In other words, that it's a dependent arising. This is really helpful. It's not that hard to understand, is it? I don't know why I thought it was. This is how realization of the emptiness of inherent establishment, inherent existence, affects, not effects, affects subsequent perception of phenomena such that they appear to be dependent arising. That's nice. So then, I frame Dindal Harumba's next statements as, responding to, well, could dependent arising itself, or if you want to word it as a negative question, couldn't dependent arising itself avoid the two extremes? But I like to word questions positively. That the reasoning of dependent arising itself avoids the two extremes makes it the monarch of reasonings. Dindal Harumba. Okay. So, skipping down a couple lines. So, to the first bullet, due to the capacity, see these words so carefully chosen, of having affixed to the predicate of the proposition. So the proposition is, my body does not inherently exist. It has a subject and a predicate. Subject is my body. Does not inherently exist is the predicate. Now, the qualification is inherently. Object, right? Within that, the qualification is inherently. Does not exist, within this statement, the object of negation does not exist. The qualification is inherently. Due to having put in inherently and not having just said does not exist. So that's the predicate, right? Due to having inserted in the predicate does not exist. Due to having inserted inherently into the predicate does not exist. My body is not understood as utterly non-existent. That's easy, right? A lot of people think that's what Buddhists are refuting. And you can say, after all, the Heart Sutra says no form, no feeling, right? We can have no form, no feeling, no this, no that, you know. Yakifu ishu, you know. Oh, I should be able to fall into that. I learned the Japanese. So earlier scholars, and what the earlier scholars has said is true enough. But it doesn't do the more subtle explanation that within the two syllables of dependent arising, within having dependent, as he will say below, dependent removing one extreme and arising remove another extreme, rather than within the reason, the sign, both extremes being removed. They had the thesis removing one extreme and the sign removing the other extreme. And as Tyndall Hardenbergh says, that's all well and good. They're not wrong. And that's what you would think. Emptiness, realizing emptiness, removes the extreme of appearance.
Yes.
Since it is the negative of inherent existence. And one would expect dependent arising to avoid this is in the paragraph that is out at the margin, and expect dependent arising to avoid the extreme of non-existence because it affirms the arising or establishment of phenomena. And indeed, these are true. So, okay, however, since this is an emptiness of inherent existence, emptiness comes to mean reliance on another. Okay. Whereby it avoids the extreme of non-existence. Okay. All right. And the reason dependent arising, by containing the word dependent, comes to mean empty of non-reliance, own power. Oh, okay. Whereby it avoids the extreme of exaggerated existence. That's good. And that's subtle. That's more subtle than the usual. But what Tyndall Hardenbergh wants to add, right? Am I right? Now you're correcting me. You're correcting the supposed explainer. Is that he's going to find all of it also within dependent arising. When, because of dependently arising is stated, through the capacity of dependently, the extreme of permanence, exaggeration, is avoided. Because, or since one can understand that my body, the phenomenon, is empty of being under its own power. And through the capacity of arising, the extreme of annihilation, of non-existence, of utter non-existence, of thinking it doesn't exist at all, is avoided. Since one can understand that my body is not utterly non-existent. So then the explanation out at the margin repeats that. And then the quote from Tsongkhapa's greater meaning longer, lesser meaning shorter, says it again. And then the final paragraph from me is a light wrap up to the whole chapter, ending in a wrong statement from me. In the last 4 words have been deleted, but in a single realization. It's 2 realizations, but I just crossed it out. I didn't say in 2 realizations because that's not the point here. I just crossed it out and ended it with this very light statement. It's a little bit too light for my taste. Uniting, a fascinating, it's a bit corny, I think, at this point. A fascinating explanation, uniting the 2 perspectives of emptiness is the meaning of, I mean, we've had enough of that, of dependent arising. Now, how I got to spend too much time, because I went too fast, obviously, on this was to spend some time on the next chapter. I have done a rough translation of Jang-kya's Song of the View with Gunjo Jigme Ombo's commentary. And I put a tiny bit of it into this book. And last week when I read this stimulated me to get out my old rough translation, especially because I read in an email that His Holiness is giving a talk on Jang-kya's Song of the View. I think it's on the 13th of February. I didn't check that this morning. And I thought, well, it might be a good idea to do a little work on it. On the commentary by Gunjo, I did a rough translation of the whole of Gunjo Jigme Ombo's commentary. He was Gunjo Jigme Ombo was recognized as the reincarnation of Jayasheva, and he is a student of Jang-kya Röl-pay. Jang-kya Röl-pay, as I remember, we went over this sometime earlier. Well, I won't make a statement about it. The Jayasheva lineages and the Jang-kya lineages are entangled in the sense that the one is helping the reincarnation of the other. And as you can see from what I just said, Jayasheva's reincarnation was taught by Jang-kya Röl-pay. And Jang-kya Röl-pay was inspired to write a commentary on Jang-kya Röl-pay's Song of the View. The Song of the View is very famous. It's very attractive. And this morning I spent a bit too much time doing the cast of characters in the poem. The mother is emptiness. The mother is the aged mother. Why? Because emptiness has been around forever. So the mother is aged, you see. The aged doesn't mean old and decrepit. Aged means has been there for the ages. The father is phenomena that have the quality of emptiness. And one word I wanted to use for this that I held back on was the poem is very cute, very attractive. I use the word attractive. And the small child, there are two children. The small child is Jang-kya himself, Jang-kya. Lopez, in his translation of the Tenets book, and I've mentioned that the whole book is translated and available. Instead of using J, uses CH. The technical one using the Wiley translation system would be C, Cangkya. Lopez uses CH because C is too hard to handle. You would be like, how would you do it? Shangya? Kangya? Who would know that in the Wiley transliteration scheme, it's Jang-kya, Jang-kya. It's a high, whatever, a high J. I used to use J with a line over it, the line indicating as my good friend, whose name escapes me for the moment, says high, sharp, and short. Jang-kya, Jang-kya. J in English is low, so it comes out Jang-kya, Jang-kya. And Lopez wanted to avoid that, so he made it Changya. But even when he says it, you see in English, this comes out like church, 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 very aspirated. That's why, what's his name, my friend, good friend, says hi, Jangya. You see, not a lot of breath. Jangya, Jangya. Somebody actually did a breath test on it, and with a breath measurer, it said it comes out as the same amount of breath as Changya. Changya, I don't think that's true. They didn't do a good test. So some people like to use CH, some people even use C. And I like to use J because I just can't stand the Changya, Jangya. But if you know, but anyway, Jangkya, Jangkya. The small child is Jangkya, and the elder brother, and I did a search, which shortened my nap this morning, is dependent arising, and then it comes up relying on dependent arising, and then and then in a sentence it says by proper observance, by the way of by the by proper observance of the way, abandoning unwholesome actions and taking up wholesome actions. The elder brother is the hard one. You normally would just be told elder brother means dependent arising, but it's used as also the base of emptiness. Now you can see how dependent arisings, appearances would be another way. They're the base of emptiness. So the elder brother is becoming the base of emptiness. It gets confusing when you listen to the poem. The elder brother is, how can the elder brother, which would be born from the mother, is the base of emptiness, you see? But this is where you have to be flexible. And in dependence on the reasoning, that's the brother, dependent arising. So dependent arising is the reasoning also, the reasoning of dependent arising. These are quotes. And based on this reasoning, through the manner, I see what that is. Somebody did okay. Anyway. Through the manner of a meaning generality, in a hidden manner, you get to realize emptiness. So just to know beforehand the cast of characters that the elder brother is dependent arising. It's also thereby the reasoning of dependent arising. It's the implications of dependent arising, which makes you abandon unwholesome actions and rely on wholesome actions, take up wholesome actions. That's the hard one. And you find the father on the lap of the mother. You kind of put that in mind, and on the lap of the mother, on the lap of emptiness. You see, on the lap of the mother, on the lap of emptiness, you find the father. That's in one line, but really it's that independence on the father, dependent arising, the reasoning of the father. You find the mother, but in one line, on the lap of the mother, you find the father. You understand dependent arising. You see that there's the mutuality, just what we've been reading. Emptiness, independent arising. Emptiness meaning dependent arising meaning emptiness. See, there's a line in there, on the lap of the mother, finding dependent arising. But in dependence, in another place, in dependence upon dependent arising, hoping to get the protection of the mother, hoping that the mother will, I think it's protection of the mother. I may have messed that up. I don't think so. So that's pretty cool. And so, and the mother is depicted as lying, the lies of the mother, because the mother appears as all sorts of things. The mother manifests as all sorts of things. So the mother is emptiness appears as dependent arisings. Mother appears, and these are the mother's lies. Why? Because, as Buddha said, this is my putting this together. Remember, all compounded things are deceptive. So all of these dependent arisings are the lies of the mother because they appear distortedly. So it is very cute, but revealingly cute, you know. It's, you know, it's lovely. Lovely. Cute meaning, you know, lovely. So it very much is in the context of what we have been reading. What we you know, we haven't just been reading it. We've been stimulated into meaning.